In recent days, the Middle East has once again been at the center of the global agenda, but this time, the cause is not only missile strikes and armed clashes. The trigger for a new wave of tension was an unexpected move by Israel, an airstrike on Qatari territory, officially explained as an attempt to eliminate key leaders of Hamas. Behind this strike lies a far more serious geopolitical crisis, the consequences of which are already being felt in Washington, Beijing, and Tehran. According to the Financial Times, the U.S. administration was literally caught off guard. Israel did not notify Washington of the planned strike, and when the missiles hit their targets, it turned out that the epicenter of the attack was just a few kilometers from the largest American military base in the region, Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, where thousands of U.S. personnel are stationed. The White House reaction was immediate. Donald Trump, according to sources in the Wall Street Journal, was furious after learning of the allies' actions. The president called the attack an unacceptable challenge to American leadership and demanded explanations from Israeli officials. But in Tel Aviv, insiders say, these demands were met coldly. The Israeli defense minister stated that the operation against Hamas was just beginning, and the country was ready to strike as long as necessary, even if it meant further attacks on Qatari territory. Here we are facing a truly dangerous moment. Israel has clearly decided to play all in, pressing on Washington's most sensitive point, the United States' strategic infrastructure in the Persian Gulf. Even more surprising were reports published by Haaretz and picked up by several Arab media outlets that Israeli authorities unofficially invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to visit Israel and discuss possibilities for a new level of cooperation. While still unofficial, the very emergence of this information undermines the U.S. position in the region. It is important to understand that this does not mean Israel is ready to completely sever ties with the United States. Military, technological, and financial links between the two countries remain too strong, but the signal is clear. Tel Aviv wants to show that Israel has alternatives, and if Washington exerts too much pressure, Beijing is ready to be considered a partner. China, as is known, has already established itself as a peacemaker, helping to restore relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran. It is now prepared to act on two fronts, offering mediation to Qatar while simultaneously engaging in dialogue with Israel. According to the South China Morning Post, Chinese diplomacy has not rejected Israel's initiative, but rather expressed willingness to expand cooperation. For Beijing, this is a unique opportunity to enter the center of Middle Eastern politics, where the United States has been the unchallenged leader for decades. If China can position itself as the sole mediator capable of restraining escalation between Arab countries, Israel, and Hamas, U.S. influence in the region will be fundamentally undermined. Iran plays a particularly important role. Tehran traditionally supports Hamas and is Israel's main adversary, but at the same time, Iran is China's key energy ally. If Beijing manages to tie Tehran, Doha, and Tel Aviv into a single diplomatic network, an unprecedented situation will emerge. The United States will lose maneuvering options and be pushed out of the settlement process. Bloomberg, citing diplomatic sources, notes that in the coming weeks, a private meeting of Israeli and Qatari delegations under Chinese mediation may take place in Beijing. While Washington attempts to pressure Israel through military and financial channels, Beijing is building a new architecture of influence in the Middle East. Trump finds himself in an extremely difficult situation. On one hand, the strike on Qatar appears as a direct insult to American leadership and a threat to the security of tens of thousands of U.S. military personnel. On the other hand, a too harsh reaction against Israel would strike at the very image of the United States as the senior ally in the Middle East. At the same time, China is strengthening its presence, offering the world a scenario in which it alone is capable of guaranteeing stability. According to experts at the Brookings Institution, if China manages to consolidate its success, a new era will begin. American dominance in the region, which seemed unshakable just a few years ago, will become a thing of the past. Israel, acting boldly and taking risks, has shown the United States that it does not intend to be a puppet. Qatar, despite its alliance with Washington, is willing to listen to Beijing if it offers security guarantees. Iran, traditionally opposed, sees in China a chance to pursue its interests without direct military confrontation. The outcome of this chain is clear. The Middle East is becoming an arena where the United States is losing control, while China is gradually building its own sphere of influence. This time, the stakes are higher than ever, involving not only the security of individual countries, but also the New World Order, in which Washington will no longer be the sole arbiter. Events are developing rapidly, and the coming weeks will be crucial. Either the United States can regain the initiative, or the world will witness China establishing itself in a region long considered a stronghold of American hegemony. Then the question will be different. Will the United States lose the entire Middle East at once if it continues to act slowly and inconsistently? Here is where it gets most interesting. The reaction is not only from Washington but also from other Middle Eastern players. Saudi Arabia, which recently restored relations with Iran thanks to Chinese mediation, issued a very cautious statement. Riyadh emphasized that any strike on the sovereign territory of Qatar is a destabilizing factor for the entire region. At the same time, Saudi officials did not directly criticize Israel, fearing damage to their own relations with Washington. However, the very fact that Saudi Arabia spoke about the need for diplomacy shows that the balance of power is shifting. According to Al Jazeera, Qatari diplomats have already held initial informal consultations in Riyadh, discussing the possibility of creating a kind of third platform for conflict resolution involving China. In the United States itself, the situation is equally tense. Congress is divided. Some Republicans demand strict measures against Israel, arguing that Trump cannot allow an ally to attack a territory hosting American forces. Others insist that Israel must have freedom of action in the fight against terrorism. In the Democratic camp, statements are even more pointed. Some senators openly say that the United States risks repeating the fate of Britain, which once lost control over the Suez Canal and ultimately ceded leadership to the United States. Now, as analysts at the New York Times write, America faces its own Suez trap. Only this time, it was created not by Arab countries, but by its own ally Israel with the participation of China. In the long term, all of this could lead to a tectonic shift. If China succeeds in consolidating its presence, within a few years it will determine the energy and military balances in the region. The United States will remain only as one of the players, not the hegemon. The irony is that this transformation was initiated by Israel itself, which in trying to destroy Hamas, effectively undermined the position of its main ally. Thus, today's crisis is not just a military operation episode, but the beginning of a new era. For the first time, America faces the reality that its allies are capable of acting against its will and even seeking support from its main geopolitical rivals. China, in turn, gains an opportunity that until now could only be imagined, to become the chief architect of a new Middle Eastern security architecture.